ask, and don't forget this wonderful 1934 edition of Ulysses, which could be yours before 7:15, 7:30. And just two parish notices. When we finish, outside, our authors will be very pleased to be signing books. And so feel free to queue up and buy their books and let them sign them. Okay, I will start with Erica, perhaps first, to say, ask her to say whatever you want to say to our Hong Kong audience.
Thank you so much, David. I'm going to read perhaps a paragraph of the book that made me notorious, and then I'm going to speak a little bit. There were 117 psychoanalysts on the Pan Am flight to Vienna, and I'd been treated by at least 6 of them, and married a 7th. God knows it was a tribute either to the shrink's ineptitude or my own glorious unanalyzability that I was now, if anything, more scared of flying than when I began my analytic adventures some 13 years earlier. My husband grabbed my hand therapeutically at the moment of takeoff. Christ, it's like ice, he said. He ought to know the symptoms by now, since he's held my hand on lots of other flights. My fingers and toes turn to ice. My stomach leaps upward into my rib cage. The temperature in the tip of my nose drops to the same level as my fingers, and my nipples stand up and salute the inside of my bra, or in this case, dress, since I'm not wearing a bra, and for one screaming minute, my heart and the engines correspond as we attempt to prove again that the laws of aerodynamics are not the flimsy superstitions which in my heart of hearts I know they are. Never mind the diabolical information to passengers. I happen to be convinced that only my own concentration and that of my mother, who seems to expect her children to die in a plane crash, keeps this bird aloft. This is the first paragraph of Fear of Flying. I didn't read you the stuff about the zipless fuck. But this book is how I got from being a respected younger poet who won all the awards Sylvia Plath and W.S. Merwin won, to being the happy hooker of American literature. It's been quite a journey, and it's taken 40 years, and I've written 3 historical novels and 7 books of poetry and many other articles and reviews and pamphlets and God knows what. And I have come to understand what it's like to be a woman writer in a world in which women are still looked at as breasts and pussies. So I have learned from my journey that we are absolutely not equal yet, but people are beginning to put us on panels. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. What I really like to do here tonight is share some of my poetry with you, but I know we're not allowed to do that because publishing a book of poetry is like dropping a rose petal down Grand Canyon. But I want to say that I always wished to be a woman of letters, that my ideals in writing were people like Jonathan Swift and Boswell. I was an 18th century scholar. I didn't want to choose a major in the great graduate school of life, which Americans tend to do. I wanted to write feuilletons, pamphlets, political things, poems, novels, satires. And I was a poet who fell into the perhaps bad habit of writing novels. So I do believe that a woman can be a person of letters. And I take great delight at this point in my life, 40 years on after Fear of Flying, of encouraging young women writers and telling them that they can do anything they want to do. And if my work has encouraged young men and young women to write freely about their lives, their feelings, their sexuality, their parents, the iron bands that hold them, the things they wish for to make them free, then I feel very lucky and very blessed. Very lucky and very blessed. I believe that I was put on this earth to be a communicator. I am a teacher. I love teaching writing, and I love encouraging young writers to know that they can fly. So that's who I am, and I'm grateful to be back in Hong Kong, a city I absolutely adore. I'm grateful to all of you for inviting me. I'm enormously grateful to Sir David for making it so much fun with his stories and his jokes and wonderful food and wonderful company. So thank you.
And when I arrived in England, and of course I could then write whatever I would like to write. I could fulfill my dreams as a writer. But at that moment, then I lost all desires to write. Because suddenly I came to this new world, which is like Mars, and there were so many new things, and I just wanted to absorb the new life, and just wanted to enjoy myself. Whereas to write would mean to look back and look inward, and to look at some things I just prefer to forget. And my father and my grandmother both died in the Cultural Revolution, and their death were the most painful spots in my heart. So I just didn't want to think about it, and I wanted to enjoy life. And I had such fun. When we first arrived, we were not allowed to go out on our own. We had to walk in a group. The 14 of us were all wearing the Mao suit, the blue kind of uniform, and we were quite a sight in the London streets. And there were many rules. We mustn't do this, that, and the other. One particular rule was we mustn't visit an English pub, because the Chinese translation for pub, 酒吧, suggested somewhere indecent with nude women gyrating. And of course, I was full of curiosity. I was torn with curiosity. And I realized that there was a pub just across the road from the college. And one day I sneaked out of the college, I darted across the road, and I pushed the door of the bar open, and of course I saw nothing of the kind. Just some old man sitting there drinking. And I was very disappointed. And so my life was, I did many first things for people from mainland China. And I didn't want to write the book. But in 1988, my mother came from China to visit me. This was her first trip abroad. And for the first time, she told me the stories of her life and the stories of my grandmother and my father. And once she started, she couldn't stop. She stayed with me for 6 months, and she talked every day. While I was listening to her, and I said to myself, I've got to write all this down. And then I suddenly realized, how I wanted to write, and how I wanted to be a writer. And it was also as though my mother knew that I had this unspoken dream, and my mother was making it possible for me to fulfill my dream. Because when I was out working, my mother would be talking into a tape recorder. So by the time she left, she had left me 60 hours of tape recordings, and I then wrote Wild Swans and became a writer. Thank you very much.